Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Welcome to another episode of Ghouly Gentlemen. I am Sid Part 2. Joining me today is...
For fun.
You got the intro right.
You know what, Steve? I don't like you sometimes. Sometimes you're and ladies and gentlemen listening, forgive me for these very harsh words on this family-friendly podcast. Sometimes you're a poopy head, Steve.
Oh
a big, dumb poopy head.
Jesus Christ, I'm gonna tweet this right now. You're gonna get canceled. Jesus Christ.
Probably.
Man. Fucking slurs out at the beginning of a podcast.
Yeah.
Family-friendly Geeky Gentleman is truly the horrorest of horror movies.
This is some blood and honey shit right here.
Yes, so last week we did Blood and Honey, and I threw it over to Alfie to pick our next horror movie. And what did you choose, Alfie?
We ended up with The Ring 2, not to be confused with Ring 2 by the same director. which is funny. But yeah, the American sequel to The Ring, by the director of the original Japanese. I think it's a duology for Ring. I don't think that he made a third one. This movie we decided to pick because I'm quite picky with horror movies. I'm not normally impressed by a lot of them, but when I found myself watching The Ring for the first time, I was like, okay, this one's actually pretty solid. Like I enjoyed it quite a lot. I thought it was quite creative, and I thought it had a good sense of tension, didn't overstay its welcome. So figured we'd roll the dice on the sequel. Hadn't watched it before, something interesting to talk about at the very least, and well, we did roll the dice at least.
Oh, okay. So, Alfie, you're kind of alluding to something. I tweeted this out at, or not tweeted, I messaged you guys about this in the Geeky Gentleman Discord chat, and I was like, The Ring 2, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, having 17 fucking endings, and Steve kind of rooted me on for that one, and Alfie remained shockingly quiet, so I was like, oh no, Alfie liked this movie. But are we all on board for this? Was kind of a slog at best?
I only didn't respond because I hadn't seen it yet at the time of that, so I didn't want to impact my thing. But once I watched it, I was like, oh yeah, I know immediately what Ian was talking about.
It was a weird time watching this because I've never seen The Ring 2. I only ever saw The Ring and thought it was actually kind of boring. And I don't know if this is a fair thing because I think I saw it when it was popular and out and stuff. I just remember getting to the end where they're making all the extra tapes and that's the end of the movie, and I'm like, wait, what the fuck would happen? I don't get it. And maybe that's just my little, middle schooler brain not comprehending stuff. But I never really had much interest in watching The Ring 2. And I was like, but, you know what, we'll just go into it. Completely fresh. We'll see how much of The Ring I remember. I'm surprised by how much... I seem to remember the perfect amount for this movie to make sense to me. Which is kind of amusing, since, again, only watched the first one time. And it's not that I hated it. It's it starts out pretty decent. Very, very 2000s looking actors. Love it when the teenagers look older than me. But it starts out decent, but then I don't know, just as it keeps going and going, I just found myself getting like really bored by it. And not in a way of like, oh, this is just too scary, or oh, this is too unsettling. No, it just keeps going. And the comparison that I had in my mind, you know how we talk about how conceptually horror and comedy are like very similar because they're all about like setting up expectations and, you know, fucking with those expectations. For me, The Ring 2 was like watching a multiple episode block of Family Guy, wherein I'm never gonna sit here and say that Family Guy doesn't have occasional funny jokes. It's just that they're throwing shit at the wall constantly, and it just gets boring after a while, so that even when something is funny, it doesn't feel like it was worth it. That's how I kind of felt about The Ring, is like, alright, so about every 5 to 10 minutes, some like creepy shit's gonna happen on screen, and it might be kind of scary, but it's just happening so often, and it's over in such a flash, and doesn't really feel like it's building. It just feels like creepy little vignettes over and over and over again to me. So yeah, that's my take on this movie. How about you, Steve?
So I thought this was ass. This was like legit just a terrible, terrible movie. I rewatched the original Japanese Ring and then the American remake and then this, so I could have a sense of all of them together.
Well, that was a terrible decision.
It kind of was, because like the original Japanese The Ring is like, oh, this is cool, this is creative, this has some good concepts, this has some like interesting moral ambiguity at the end. It is more of like a thriller with horror asides, and the acting is really good and stuff. And then the American Ring is kind of plagued by the idea that it's too faithful to the original, and it's just kind of faithful in a way that's superficially pulling stuff directly from it without the context or the acting or the thematic weight to make it make sense. Like, one of my big problems with the American remake is the kid just feels like a fucking psychopath because he's just creepy and weird. And like in the American Ring, the opening, there's that scene where she's like freaked out because like, where's my black dress? Where's my black dress? And he just has it laying on the sofa, and he just gives her a look, and it's shot in a way where it makes it seem like this kid's fucking Damien from The Omen. In the Japanese, that's the same scene that's in the Japanese, but the difference is in the Japanese version, the idea is this is a woman who became a single parent, not with her consent. She didn't want this to happen. She didn't want to be a mom to begin with. And the kid is basically just parenting himself. That everything he does is just a function of like, he has to be the adult in this relationship, and he just kind of is matter-of-factly rolling through it. And the American movie just completely is unable to convey that idea at all. So like the American Ring is not great, and I don't love it, and I feel like a lot of the stuff about it ends up feeling kind of nonsensical, but it's fine. Like, it's a watchable horror movie. And then this is just kind of garbage. I like that you mentioned Family Guy, because the only thing that I could like really see when I was watching this movie is Scary Movie 4, which is just a direct parody of The Ring, doesn't feel like a parody. It just feels like this movie, where she's going around investigating things, and she's just like the fucking worst investigator in the world, who like gathers no information, asks no questions whatsoever, and people just roll with it and give her stuff in the dumbest possible ways. She like goes to the insane asylum to meet Samara's mom, and she's like, I'm looking for Evelyn. Like, and she doesn't even have like a goddamn last name, and the doctor's there like, oh yeah, you must be looking for Evelyn Morgan, the mother of Samara. Sometimes people do that. Anyway, follow me. It's just so dumb. It's hard to like even feel like it's about much, because at the end, at one of the multiple endings this movie has, it tries to like do the same thing that the original Japanese Ring does, which is it's about motherhood and it's about the relationship between parents and children. And the original movie kind of ends on this ambiguous note where she's essentially going to use the tape to kill her father so that her kid can live. And the idea is supposed to be like, old generations die so new ones can live, yada, yada, yada. And this movie tries to do some of that thematic stuff too, because it's the same director, and it's just about Samara wanting a mom, but none of that goes anywhere, and it has that really big cheesy payoff line of like,
I'm
"I'm
not your
your
mommy,
fucking
bitch."
mommy." It's so dumb. I could not get into this. This is not one of those horror movies where I can sit back and talk about the things about it that are failed and that are interesting. It's just really dumb, and I had a hard time staying awake.
All right, Alfie,
Yeah.
what's your general thoughts?
Too far off you guys. Again, I don't think this is a very good movie at all. I think this is kind of like a shocking failure on, even at the base level, even if you don't like the first movie, I think we can all agree that it's just got a really good hook. Like, it's got a really good just premise
It's got like
of
that
tapes.
same vibe as like Scream, you know? Like you
Right.
kind of get what it's about in the first 5 minutes.
Like, it's got that thing you can do a lot with. You can go to a lot of different places with it. You can have a lot of different types of characters interact with that kind of hook. And the same thing you talked about, Steve, of like parenthood and the themes involved with that and stuff, is like you don't need to go really hard to make having kids seem scary. That's a pretty easy like thing to do in a lot of ways. So I think there's a lot of potential on here, and I think you could have made a sequel to this really interesting. But the basic just failings of using any of those ideas in any way that's creative, and it's not like we're not seeing new stuff here. I'd almost argue like when we immediately open with some of the new things we have Samara do and stuff, it kind of immediately takes you out of it in like that. Whenever we do too many horror sequels and like you see Jason just doing shit that's just like, all right, like we've kind of lost the plot here for this guy like Michael Myers as well. Like every horror icon seems to have that part where we just decide to remove a lot of the cool iconography and go just really off the wall with it in a way that loses what the initial like idea of this specific horror icon was about. And that's something that this film I think does immediately, and then we never really go back to, is a lot of the effective ways, because I've seen some clips on the Japanese version because I wanted to compare the directorial style, and there's almost some scenes in there that are like shot for shot with this. The example is like the scene at the very end when she's climbing out of the well is like a direct recreation from The Ring 2, but so while the effects for Samara, I think, are creepier in the new version, because like how she moves and stuff is like more broken and wiggly and stuff, but like the motions from the actors and how just it's lit and the general tone and especially the soundtrack for this movie is this. To your point, Ian, when you were talking about it, feel like this film doesn't like it's constantly giving you something creepy. There's not a single time where the soundtrack of this movie stops being ominous and just lets you just chill. Is always playing ominous.mp3 like throughout the entire course of the movie, and it's just like, Jesus Christ, guys, I'd respect this a little bit more if you gave us a little breathing room. If you gave here's the deers, never mind. Like it's just
My
it's just
fucking
weird.
god, the deers were so dumb. Like
So
it doesn't
strange,
help.
man.
It
So
doesn't help
dumb.
that they're like fucking CGI, terrible CGI. But like, just what the fuck does she have to do with deers? Like the water thing made sense because Samara was drowned, right? Like that works. And the videotape's like, oh well, everything was filmed, but just the fucking like deer is just, it's so out of nowhere. And again, it just feels creepy for the sake of creepy. And to your point, Steve, it feels more like it belongs in a movie about The Omen than it does in this shit.
No, I mean, that I think is directly a reference to the original Omen, where all the animals in the zoo go apeshit over Damien being in the car, which I think tracks because this kid becomes possessed by Samara throughout the movie. So I think they were trying to go for that angle a little bit, because a lot of the stuff.
Then why did they let him leave?
Huh?
Then why the fuck did
No,
they
I'm not
just
saying it's
back
good.
off?
I'm not saying it's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just saying I think what they were going for was a riff on the scene from The Omen where the kids, the Antichrist, and the animals are freaked out. But it is still really dumb here because I don't understand, yes, why they let him leave, but two, also, like, the possession plot of this kid feels like it really just plays fast and loose with when exactly Samara is able to control him and not. And I really don't comprehend why the movie needed to, like, introduce this really weird moment where all the Druids fucking attack her. She drives off and goes to work. And then from there, they introduce this weird subplot about, like, the dude who works at the paper thinks she's abusing his child or something. And, like, there is maybe some thread to pull here about Naomi Watts' character being accused of abuse while she uncovers, like, an actual case of abuse with Samara, but none of those dots ever feel like they're really being connected. It just feels like scene by scene this movie is trying to figure out what it wants to be, and it never quite gets there.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, there's... Go ahead.
Okay.
No, you go first.
You could make a pretty interesting horror film around the premise, and there's plenty of examples, I'm sure, of this existing, of an abusive mother-parent relationship that from the inside feels like this possession horror movie style plot, but the real true terror of it comes from the outside people who see it for what it really is, and it is like just a story of abuse, and it's like you could do a really compelling kind of heart-wrenching story about that. There's a movie in there about just that basic idea that they kind of throw away in this, and it really only exists just to pad out some more scenes and to have some more characters be around to get killed, because this movie really struggles to introduce any other characters that aren't just the mother and the son, because like there's really little any reason for anyone else to get involved in this, but they continue to through, like you said, like the abuse plot line, and that's just all really again, I don't think the people involved in this are untalented. I think they've shown that they're talented, and I don't think this is like something that was immediately doomed. But it just reeks to me of something that maybe, because the circumstances of which the director got brought in after the first movie is kind of like an apology, like kind of like a pity thing of like, oh, we kind of ripped you the fuck off. Do you want to maybe course correct and like have a bunch of money from this, and like you can have control over the franchise now, which in theory seems like a good way of making reprimations. But from what little I've gleaned of the behind the scenes, because it's surprisingly hard to find, it seems like it was actually a nightmare of a film to make, and the dude ended up with basically no creative control on the entire thing that was very studio focused.
That's unfortunate. Okay, so I want to, before we move on though, I want to continue on the abuse subplot. You know that, like, that trope that, like, a lot of parody videos and stuff have done where, alright, the end of the movie, but then 5 minutes later, okay, this mother was accused of abuse, she fled the scene of the hospital, which, makes her look guilty as fuck. Her son was admitted to the hospital with severe hypothermia and bruises on his back. And she's, like, on documentation for having suffered from postmenstrual stress disorder. So, yeah, no, like, the cops show up to the house 5 minutes after the movie ends and arrest her and take the son into the... not orphan, what's the word I want? System. I'm just gonna use our system because my brain can't keep up tonight. But like that's clearly what happens. Like there's no way to resolve that. She's damned herself right away from the action she's taken in this movie. Also, like with the idea of like the abused child and the like leaving, you know, and Samara just wants a mother, just wants someone to take care of her. Two things on that. One, it's really fucked up that they just lock the bitch in the well and say, stay there, cunt. That's not nice. That's not a good way to, like, you're objectively, you know, this was an abused child. That's what has made her spirit unrestful. She just wants a mother. I'll be her mother. Psych is such a weird fucking sequence of events for the plot.
It's so dumb. It's so dumb. Because, like, why would you even bother with that theme if your payoff is, anyway, trapped in the well?
Yeah. Okay, second thing, right? And this may be controversial opinion. What's the kid's name again?
Aiden, I think.
Aiden. Right. All right. Can we all agree that Sumara is a much better child than Aiden?
I was just about to say this. Like, when I was watching that movie, I'm like, if I'm the fucking mom, I'm like, thank you, Jesus, for this demon gift. She's well behaved. She just wants to watch cartoons. She calls me mom, for fuck's sake. She loves me. She hugs me. She's super affectionate. And she'll listen with enough encouragement. Like, clearly, she's got some attachment issues, but we can work with this. And I can have, like, an actual normal child. Because, well, I don't know what the fuck that other kid was, but, like, at least Demon Girl acts like a real child. And it's so funny that's what sets her off as, like, oh, it's a possession. Is like, well, hang on a minute. Hold the phone. Something's not right here. You're acting like a sweet, loving baby.
Are we sure the mom was not the one who was being abused the whole time?
Like, I'm saying, like, I'm trapped this fucker in the well. Like, bring some she did nothing wrong. He's, like, way worse than she is.
That
so
kid
funny.
actor is so bad. I despise him in this movie and in the other one.
It's just funny, like, because as a parent, Leah went through a phase where she'd heard me call my wife Haley, her mother, Haley, and she went through another phase where she'd been asking people, "What's your name?" And so one day she asked Haley, and Haley made a mistake of saying, "My name's Haley, but you call me Mom." And then for like, I don't know, a good 2 weeks it was, "Haley," and I'm like, no, don't do that. It's just not right. And just the idea, like, you know, she was fucking 2 when this happened. The idea of just your fucking, 10-year-old calling you by name all the time is insanity. And it's just like, it's fundamentally disrespectful. It just makes her look like a bad parent if she's just gonna put up with that shit. And I don't know, it's just not a good time. Really fucking set me for a loop. There's sidetrack with more Leah's story. Haley was legitimately worried about it because at one point she was calling her Haley and also saying, "Where are we going?" And she was very worried that they'd be like out in a store and Leah would just start saying that shit and people would think it's not her daughter.
Aw, that's adorable.
But like, again, that's a 2-year-old. This is a fucking 10-year-old. That's just disrespectful. This kid knows to behave better.
I didn't understand where any of that was coming from either. Like, in both movies, the mom and her ex are divorced or broken up or something, but Noah is their kid. Like, this is her literal physical child. I don't understand at what point between movies, or even maybe in just this movie, why he starts just calling her Rachel instead of Mom. And I don't understand.
That's not a carryover from the first film?
Not that I remember. I don't remember that being a thing
you just
at all.
watched
It's
them.
the fast either. They don't. It's just a thing. It's just to make him quirky.
It's so fucking weird. I don't understand why he does that for any reason. Like, and again, you compare it to the original Japanese film that has the same director here, and the reason the kid is like that is because literally his mom sucks at being a mom and he has to mom her for her. And like, there is definitely like a little bit of a tension of like, this kid effectively is walking to school on his own, he's getting his lunch on his own, he's getting his mom's clothes ready for her because she just can't function as an adult, and that makes sense. But I don't get that vibe at all from Naomi Watts' character in either of these movies. And I think part of the problem is just, I don't think she's good in either of these movies either. I think she's extremely wooden. Every time a revelation happens, she makes the same sort of stock expression of surprise, but it never really feels like a genuine surprise. And her character is like the worst investigative journalist I've ever seen in a movie, who can't seem to find anything out without someone just expositing things to her. And she never asks like important leading questions. She just keeps like walking into scenarios that happen to work out for her. And it's really hard to be sympathetic for her because I feel like the chemistry between her and the son is not there, and she's not doing anything to make me endear her to her situation at all. At a certain point, it just sort of feels like Samara can just kill them both, and I wouldn't care.
Yeah, I was
mean,
kind of
yeah, but
surprised
Samara's
with
too
that.
good a kid to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. All Samara wanted was someone to love her. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, well, fucking bitch. I will push back a little bit on at least the thing with the first one is I do think Naomi Watts is pretty good in the first one because I think what you're describing there is like wooden with that. I thought that was more of a choice in the first one where she actually did feel like because in that one she's meant to be kind of like the big city reporter who again doesn't have time for anything, and it felt more like she's reacting how someone who's like investigated violent crimes would react to these things where she's going to be like unnerved by the supernatural shit, but she's not going to be like fucking screaming bloody murder, and so she's going to be practical. I thought that was refreshing. I thought that was something that I liked in the first movie where like she felt competent. She felt like she was reacting to these events in a way a normal person would try and think about and feel about that, which is exceedingly rare in horror, especially these type of films. So I appreciated that choice. Here, though, it almost feels like she's a completely different character. And during the watch, I mentioned this a couple of times to Aaron, where it was just like this. At some points in this movie, they feel like they didn't go through the events of the first ring. Like the decisions and choices and how long it takes for them to realize what's happening. It's like, y'all went through like this shit already, like not too long ago. Like this should be at the forefront of your fucking memory. That when videotape shit starts happening or weird supernatural shit starts happening, it's probably the fucking well girl. Like you guys had like even with the example of the first ring, there's a fake part in the ring where they're like, oh, it's over, but then it's not really over. So they've also got that extra excuse of like not even other horror protagonists can have like, well, they defeated the evil. Is at the end of the ring, they know damn well she's still out there. That's the whole point of the ending is like, oh yeah, we didn't beat her, there's no way to beat her, we're fucked. And then in this one, they're like, I don't know, he might just be having a nightmare. As like his fucking entire body is covered in soaking water. It's like, I don't know, man, I think it's that ring, bitch.
It
There's
also
that. There's that, and then there's the other thought that like came to mind for me as I watched this. It Follows is the movie that did all the stuff The Ring and The Ring 2 was trying to do, but like good, right?
Yeah, 100%. It Follows is this premise except actually competent.
That's the thing, like, it just kept coming up to me. It's like, wow, I guess this is a lot like It Follows. But I liked that movie.
Yeah. So the other thing, right, is like It Follows and The Ring have the same ending where it's supposed to be that they pass out a copy of the tape and she'll just continue to kill the next person. And there is supposed to be like this sort of ambiguity and this hopelessness of like, as long as a tape of it exists somewhere, someone is going to watch it and someone's going to die. And that's just the nature of it. The Japanese one plays it a little bit more optimistically because it sort of serves as like a way to say goodbye to the past and then move forward with your life and your family. And passing the tape on is a lot like just sort of like closing the chapter on one part of history and moving forward. And there's a lot of interesting symbolism in that movie in particular about like what traditional Japanese culture used to be versus how progress of the 80s and 90s and technology invaded and eroded that. So like technology was literally killing you, hence the videotape. All of that is gone in the American remake and in this one. So for a lot of these weird situations where like you feel like the characters should have gone through the first movie to begin with, it also just starts creating these questions about like what exactly is Samara's motivation and how does she progress through these things, like these sort of like technical in-universe questions you're not thinking about in the original because it's more competent than this. Like if the tape requires you to make a copy and then pass it along to someone else, nowhere does it seem to articulate to you that like, oh yeah, and when the person that watched the tape most recently dies, I'm going backwards and killing the people before that, right? So why does Samara come back for Rachel at this point? I don't understand that.
Yeah, it's weird
I
because she's
kinda
even like,
got-
"I found you," and
Like,
shit.
why was
which
he
is
looking for
ridiculous.
her? No one assumed that this was a thing.
Yeah, the vibe I guess I kind of got was that, like, maybe because she's the only one that's like directly confronted her and like survived this long, she kind of got an attachment to that of kind of like, oh, you can hang with me, you can stick around, but like they don't interrogate anything of that. It's like that's entirely me just projecting a narrative onto this that isn't actually there. So that's the only guess I could give, is that's where the mother thing comes from, but no one else deals with that. She does the exact same thing to everyone else as the first thing, but it's also the mother thing isn't something that's brought up in the first one at all either. It's like it feels like two different Samaras, because in the first ring, she still has the same tragic backstory, but the implication is meant to be that, oh no, she's just fucking evil. Like, she's just always been like this fucking demon child. And they try to have like the whole point of the first film's ending is like, oh, you think they've like tamed the spirit of the ghost and now she can rest in peace. And it's like, no, think again, motherfucker. I never wanted to rest in peace. I just want to fuck people up. Let's go. Like, it's meant to be like a...
Which is just not the Sumara we see in this movie, quite literally, because she's actually a good kid.
Yeah, and then
This is
this
on
film...
her entire backstory, really.
In this film, she's like a totally different person who's like actually seems genuinely sad and sweet. And it's like, well... if this Samara had the ending of the first film, she wouldn't be vent. She would have been raided up. She does seem like someone that just wants to rest in peace. Like, it doesn't. Again, it's just that thing of like, you have a cool horror visual. You have a cool horror piece in iconography of the girl coming out of the TV. That's your own. It's unique. You swiped it from the Japanese, but fuck it. Like, it's iconic now. It's working, and you've brought in the original dude. So like, you can work with this. You can make a thing. But then we immediately just move past all of that and go into something that's a lot more generic possession, a lot less having anything to do with the tension and ideas, not even just of the original, but of horror in general. We just move into this very, very weird space that's just, is everyone here? Why are we wasting time on this? And it feels like, despite having more money and being more successful, this film feels like way more small scale compared to like how the events of this film happen. You almost could make this a direct-to-TV movie with how little like we go to like 3 locations and the only
It's a stage
expensive
play.
shot.
The Ring,
Yeah, exactly.
the stage play.
The only like expensive thing would be the shitty CG idea. Like, what do they even need to exist at that point? The entire third act just ends in the house. And not even in the house exactly, it's just in the living room. And like, it's just this weird choices. It's like, why are we here? Why are we doing this? It's just a lot of why and not a lot of payoff.
And
She can't hear us in our dreams. Why?
Oh my god.
She's inside of you. Why the fuck not?
that was also arbitrary and weird, and I didn't understand it. And like, a lot of the stuff we can kind of like get away with if you had like some sort of competent idea as the projection through your whole movie, right? Like, no one needs an explanation for what the motivation or history or origin of the thing in It Follows is, because it's a good scary movie and it has a very clear thematic idea of the thing following you around. And so like, those questions ultimately don't matter. The reason the original Halloween is a classic is because the fact that Michael Myers doesn't have a reason is the point of the whole movie. And even in the first Ring, or the original Ring, like, you get into all the backstory of who Sadako is and why she got trapped in the well and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, that's all just a way to uncover the actual trouble in the relationship between the mom and the dad and the kid. And so like, you never really ask a lot of questions about the whys and the hows, because you kind of care about the relationship and you care about what the movie's trying to say. And when you don't have that, you're just stuck with a lot of like weird logistical questions that are just rolling around throughout the movie that won't have any satisfactory answer because they're not really designed to. And I mean, this kind of gets to the thrust of like a lot of remakes in general, but specifically remakes in America of movies from other countries, which happens a lot. Last year, there was a really good movie called Guilt, or The Guilty, that was remade in English, and the English version is fine. But we do this a lot where like a concept gets popular in a film industry somewhere else in the world, and then we just buy the rights and remake it almost shot for shot in English, and it's effectively the same movie, but you lose a lot of like the substance and the cultural background that makes the ideas stick. Like the American Ring is a competent enough movie. Like it's not bad or anything, but it doesn't have any of the interesting ideas that the Japanese one does, because guess what? It's an American movie starring white people in America that don't live in the same context as the Japanese. The original Ring is made in a context of the late 80s or the late 80s and 90s, where Japan hit an economic recession, and it was literally at war with itself over maintaining its original traditionalist culture and the appeal of technology and selling technology to America, and like how there was a clash between modernism and traditionalism that influences a lot of manga, anime, and film, like things like Ghost in the Shell. And so the Ring is a manifestation of that. It's an idea of like, how do traditional Japanese family values survive in a modern world, and is technology, and specifically things like home video, manufacturing home theater systems and electronics, literally killing us, hence Sadako and the videotape. You translate that to America, and you can make like a sufficient thriller, but none of those ideas exist here. None of those are things that we are conflicted with in that moment in time. So it doesn't have any sort of lasting impact, and instead you just have to rest on making a competent movie that's thrilling, but isn't ultimately about very much compared to the original. And when you don't even have that, and you completely abandon the idea that movies should be competently made, never mind that they should have interesting thematic ideas, then you end up with The Ring 2, which is, did you watch the first Ring? Did you see the creepy poster of the girl coming out of the TV? Well, here's 100 minutes of just that with nothing strung together for it.
You know what the other thing I remember from the first Ring movie? And this just goes to my not being a white person thing, right? You remember that moment where Samara starts crawling out of the TV, and the guy, it's basically the climax of the movie, and the guy's like freaking out, and he's like stepping backwards, and he's staring at her the whole time, and he like falls, and then she gets him.
Yeah.
You remember that? I think with the first movie was like, why the fuck don't you just turn and run away? Why are you watching it happen? And I know there's like probably an argument, oh, he's just like so terrified, he's frozen in fear, and he can't help himself. I'm like, he seems to be helping himself just fine to step backwards.
And like, again,
just turn.
It would totally be like a horror movie trope you could excuse if you at the end of the day felt like there was some kind of reason or meaning behind it all. Because it's the exact same scene that the original Japanese one ends on. Albeit like a different like style apartment. Like he's in this weird sort of like warehousey loft. And in the Japanese, he's more in like a traditional Japanese apartment room, so it's a lot smaller. So he has a lot smaller spaces to run in. But it's the same scene, and it's not elongated in the Japanese version in the way it is in the American version. And so you like have less room to sit there and question what's happening, and you just get like this really quick cut of like, oh shit, she's killing him. And then immediately you cut over back to the wife, and she's like, oh shit, she killed him, but she didn't kill me. Why is that? And then you lead into the climax of the movie. And it's just an Americanism in a lot of the stuff where it just feels like an early 2000s movie. Ring 2 especially, where it's got the same energy as like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake that came out around the same time. And then later down the line, we'll get like shitty remakes of Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, and all of these movies kind of have the same sort of like early to late 2000s energy of taking everything that was iconic about the original movie that people really liked and throwing it at you, but not stringing to any like idea together with it, completely losing the context or the meaning behind the original to just kind of like keep the brand alive.
Yeah. I don't know.
I just see the scary movie version where she crawls out the TV and she just starts fucking throwing hands.
Yeah, like legit though. Why does no one just fucking beat the shit out of Samara?
Scary Movie 4
She's a little
is
girl.
like infinitely better than this movie. I love it.
This bitch is messing up my fucking floor.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, Scary Movie 4 has Dr. Phil and Shaq in the beginning.
Yeah.
Where's the other shit? Like, God, those fucking movies. You know, this has nothing to do with anything, but it's related to Scary Movie. I think it was Scary Movie 5 or 6, maybe. Because apparently they made that many. I was flipping through videos the other day, and I stumbled across a clip that was like a parody of the Rise of the Planet of the Apes from one of the Scary Movies. And I was like, man, maybe these movies aren't as bad as I remember them being, because that was actually pretty fucking funny.
The original Scary Movie, the one that's just a riff on Scream, is by modern standards kind of offensive, but also I don't care. It's really funny.
I still remember the one joke of like, "Hey, yo, man, does this shirt look gay?" Nah. How about now? And he, like,
That's
takes
so
it
good. And they're like fucking Ghostface just getting high.
Yeah.
It's
Like,
legitimately
I don't know, like,
really funny.
it's weird to think of that movie as offensive, given that it's like the first two are made by the Wayans brothers.
They are, yeah.
And then they sell the rights to the folks that made Airplane from 3 onward. And those are, and then you get like your fucking epic movie and superhero movie and and all of those are terrible.
Yeah.
At least from memory. There were a couple others like in that
Some
same
very
vein
funny
that were.
scenes.
Yes, like Family Guy syndrome, right?
Yeah,
Or, like,
yeah, pretty much.
watching something in isolation versus watching the whole movie.
Yeah.
There were some other ones like in that same vein though that were pretty fun. Did you guys ever watch The Comebacks?
No. What is that?
It's like the sports movie kind of thing with like the you got the coach and he comes onto the team that's really struggling and he like whips the team into shape and gets them to the championship. That's got some pretty good moments in it, including the star player is named ACL tear.
That's actually really funny.
So the whole movie, you're fucking waiting for it to happen. And then it
That's
does.
actually really funny. Oh, this is even better. I just Googled it, and according to Wikipedia, it is directed by Thomas Brady. So it's literally directed by Tom Brady.
That's amazing. I love it. No, the comebacks I would recommend. Not that it's related at all to this fucking movie, but here we
Anyway,
are.
yeah.
We've reached that point in the review.
Yeah, it's... I said this in the beginning, like, there's just not a lot of interesting things about it, even in, like, the sense of trying to dissect why it's bad. It's just not a very memorable or interesting movie. And I feel like we could have, like, a much more complicated and interesting conversation kind of going back and forth over the good and the bad of the 2002 remake and, like, what it really nails versus what it misses the mark on. And then there's just this movie, which feels like a string of deleted scenes from the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
more or less.
deleted scene theme is definitely true. It also has that, like I said, the direct-to-TV sequel vibe to
Yeah.
it. Like, it doesn't feel like the movies. Like, it just feels like they bootlegged. We got the actors to come back, and it's just like, oh, all right, here we go again. But, like, no, this was like a hit, and you guys had money now. Like, what happened? Like, this is just, it's just such a strange circumstance where it feels more low effort than a lot of the things leading up to it should have been. But again, maybe that was the case. Again, even the director, I'm sure he didn't have the best conditions to work with his studio, but he'd been working on this fucking series for how long already? He'd already made his movies, and now he's having to do it in a different language with a different culture. And it's probably something like you were saying, Steve, is which probably even if he had 100% creative control, he probably wouldn't have been feeling it as hard, because like, how could you in those circumstances? It is going to feel more so like, I'm really just doing this for the wider audience and the paycheck at this point. So
Yeah.
like, I don't think there was any way to make it work.
He did, however, just glancing through his wiki, he did make one of the Death Note movies that I really like, so I'm here for that.
One of the
He made the L one, the standalone movie where L's like
I'll
lost
save
20
the world.
Yeah, the one where Ella just has like a month to live and just like befriends a little girl and shit. I love that movie.
I love
It's so
that
fucking
movie.
good.
Yeah, that movie's great. I wish that movie was like canon. It's like really good.
The Death Note movies are one of the rare instances where I feel like the live action adaptation is actually better than the manga.
Damn.
It's been a while since I've seen those films, but I remember the L one vividly because it's the one that's like the most different. Like it's because it's its own thing.
Yeah, because in the manga and in the anime, L dies halfway through, and that's the point where most people lose interest, including me. But the movies change the ending so that L wins, but he only has like a month left to live, and there's just a whole extra bit that they did in the movies. And I really, really like that movie. I think it's legitimately the best Death Note thing.
Interesting. Okay, well, we seem like we're thoroughly done talking about this movie. So I'm going to say let's go ahead and go on to ratings. I'll give this 1 out of 5 CGI deers.
I'll give this 1 out of 5 non-possessed but definitely demonic children.
I'll give this 1 out of 5. Poor Samara's who deserved real mother. Can we set up? Can we set up a? Is there any like horror movie like franchise woman who's like lost a child who like would be a good mother?
Oh, so Jason Voorhees' mom.
There you
Yeah,
go.
I mean,
Jason Voorhees' mother adopts Sumara. There we go. There's your fucking.
You know what your horror fucking franchise premise is? Is Jason, Samara, stepbrother, stepsister fucking duo is kind of crazy. Like that would be kind of.
See,
cool.
I feel like it's already been pitched, but because you've said stepbrother, stepsister, it's already a porno.
No.
Oh, well, I mean, also.
No. Imagine like jacking off to fucking Samara porn, and then she comes out of your computer screen and kills you.
Oh, man.
Tell me it's not a thing. Fucking Rule 34 it right now, Steve. Do it right now. Live reaction, Rule 34.
I was gonna say she was a child abandoned by her parents. Let's just make her into a Robin and throw her in a Batman movie.
You know what? We do the fucking like Robin thing so much with a lot, like like the horror movie versus Batman.
Yeah.
The way he defeats the Ring is by bringing her into the Bat family is kind of a genius idea.
That would honestly slap.
It's basically just Cassandra Cain's backstory.
Yeah. Oh my god, that would be really fucking cool.
Yep,
So
there's Rule
she still
34
comes out,
Sumara.
she-
There you go.
Joker's doing his fucking like TV announcement bullshit like the Riddler, and then Bam has just like execute code ring, and like the fucking comes out of the TV and tags to her face. Like she's got the little fucking 60s Robin outfit on with like the eye mask and shit. Like
Oh my god. I'm here for it.
Joker's just like,
100%
what the
here
fuck,
for it.
man? Like I could handle the other guys, but this bitch is hardcore. Fuck this.
She strikes it out on her own and then teams up with the Spectre and they just like fucking murder people. It's great.
I love it. I'm here for it.
Samara
All
and
right.
Dusty when.
Pretty much. Alright, so then it comes back to me. Yes, no, maybe so?
I believe
Sure.
so.
Okay. Trying to think of what a good one to do would be. Part of me's just been tempted, and I'm curious how you guys feel about this. I'll let you guys choose which one of these. I want to review one of the original Universal, 30s monster movies.
Ooh.
So, do we want to do the original Dracula, Wolfman, Creature, Invisible Man? I'll leave that up to you. Like, which of that House of Horror kind of vibe do you guys want to step back to?
To be honest, the one I'm most interested in is the Wolfman because that's the only one that's not based on a book already, and it's a completely original movie concept based on the success of the others. So I'd be down for the Wolfman unless Alfie has a different one.
Yeah, I'd say Dracula, but I don't like the Universal Dracula, and like there's a better fucking Italian Spanish version of it. So like, I'd rather just watch the good Wolfman, you know, than having to talk about like two different versions of Dracula and like a better one which no one else is gonna watch, you know. So like I think Wolfman's a good choice.
All right, then we'll check out the original Wolfman. I think that's 37, if I'm remembering correctly. So that'll be next time on Geeky Gentlemen. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. Until then, I'm the Philosopher.
I am the champion of the oppressed well girls.
And I have 7 days to live.
And we are your ghouly gentlemen, and we will be dissecting things.
Ha 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 ha!